This is the Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, according to St. Matthew. Jesus said, "Whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet in the name of a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person in the name of a righteous person will receive the reward of the righteous. And whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple, truly I tell you, none of these will lose their reward." The Gospel of the Lord. My maternal grandmother, who we called Granny, was a lovely woman. She was funny and kind and generous. She laughed a lot. She liked bourbon and country music. She wasn't the baking cookies kind of grandmother. She was more the driving fast in her convertible kind of grandma. And we were all always happy to go to Granny's house. She also reminded me regularly to stop slouching. "Stand up straight," she'd say, threatening to tie a board across my back to pull my shoulders back. Now, to be honest, I didn't really appreciate this critique, nor did I believe it to be true, and I ignored her particular complaints. But of course, she was right. I did slouch. Correction, I do slouch still. And she was right that I would be sorry later, as my back regularly reminds me. And from the examination of my own life and a close observation of others, it is my belief that most people like hearing neither about their mistakes nor about the likely negative impact of their choices. Nobody wants to hear that they are wrong. And when the people telling us we are wrong aren't our otherwise beloved grandmothers, we tend to extend our dislike of being told we're wrong to also not liking the people who tell us. This is the gist of the old axiom about shooting the messenger. We often prefer to castigate or find fault in the messenger rather than having to hear what they have to say. And in our tradition of faith, we have a word for people with a propensity to tell us truths we'd rather not hear. We call them prophets. And as a quick study of our Bible would show you, people rarely are eager for the words of the prophet. And if the prophets are lucky, they are only ignored, though often they are unlucky instead. And the story of Jesus is, of course, the number one example of being unlucky. Jesus is an inveterate truth teller, and sometimes his truth telling is welcomed. Think of the Samaritan woman at Jacob's well, or Peter and Andrew and James and John being told that they would fish for men. Sometimes the truth is less welcomed, such as when the good people of Nazareth, his hometown no less, tried to throw Jesus off a cliff after he preaches in the local synagogue, or the money changers who were driven out of the temple. And of course, the leaders of Jerusalem and the temple who were so unwilling to hear Jesus' truth that they plotted to shut him up for good. But the thing about truth is, as the plotters against Jesus learned, that it has a way of asserting itself, regardless of your willingness to accept it. Reality always wins in the end. And we are seeing truth assert itself in myriad ways right now in the wider world around us. We see it in those pretending that the coronavirus won't affect them if they were young, or like to wear red hats, or live in a nice neighborhood, or whatever. This has led our nation to being the only modern industrialized nation in the world seemingly unable to come to grips with the virulent and deadly pandemic. We are shown to be exceptionally inept, at least outside of a few places, which thankfully include New York. And we have seen the promise of the American dream that has been systematically denied to a large swath of our fellow citizens. We have perhaps witnessed more clearly and cruelly than ever the perverse indifference to life, morality, and public sentiment that some of those empowered on our behalf have shown, especially to our brothers and sisters of color. We have seen that we are dependent for our lifestyles upon a vast cadre of workers who are not paid enough to even begin thinking about taking their shot at the American dream, who risk losing their already meager health coverage, and who face regular abuse at the hands of those who depend upon them. As Jesus' life, death, and resurrection show us, injustice cannot stand against the weight and power of God's truth. Jesus could not be silenced. God cannot be silenced. Ignored, certainly, but not silenced, nor stopped. God's justice will be done. We are not impervious to it, and we can either be on the side of the prophets, on the side of Jesus, or we can join the crowd who prefers to shout, "Crucify him," instead. There is, unfortunately, no middle ground. We are called. We must stand for justice, for truth, for reconciliation, for peace, or be prepared to be swept aside by God's hand. Thanks be to God.